بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه أجمعين نبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المطهرين. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's an honor to take part in this discussion and this attempt to delve into some sensitive and at the same time controversial areas of concern and relevance to the lives of many of us living in the West today. And therefore, at the onset, I would like to request the brothers and sisters to participate and to get themselves involved in this discussion as much as possible. And this is not a session to grill myself or to present your questions in order for me to give you the answers. This is a session whereby we are able to somewhat exchange our ideas and thoughts and come to some points of discussion of benefit, inshaAllah ta'ala, to all. The discussion starts with this idea that recently there's been a number of incidents whereby our sisters within certain communities have taken off the hijab and have decided to take off the Islamic dress code. And at the same time, they've come under a great deal of criticism by a number of brothers and as well as sisters when it comes to this decision that they've undertaken. And hence, of course, the area that is concerning this matter of hijab surrounds around the idea of whether men are able or should they in any shape or form advise the females and their sisters, or should they be telling them whether hijab should be worn or not. And the reason for this is that when it comes to hijab, the sisters claim or say that the brothers have no idea how difficult it is. And of course, it's a responsibility and a duty, and sometimes they're subjected to difficulty and criticism from people whom they have surrounded themselves with. And therefore you'd find in social media sites such as Facebook or Twitter and other places, the question has been posed: should the subject of hijab be left to sisters? It is a matter that concerns sisters and the females, and it is something that they know more about. Should the brothers get themselves involved? And if so, why should they get themselves involved? Are they in the position to advise, or should they be looking at problems that concern themselves and themselves only? So that is an introduction for us to be able to delve into the subject a bit more detail.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sheikh, for that short introduction. So without further ado, let's open up to the crowd. I want you guys to get involved. So first of all, very simply, should men or should we men be even advising you guys on hijab? Any opinions? If there are no opinions, I'll say myself. I'll go to the men. All the sisters that come here, there's more sisters than brothers. I'm sure everyone there is urging to say something. Perhaps I need to say something controversial. Shall I go for it? Well, I do think that...
well, if they don't say anything, then the whole subject is finished, because the brothers can say whatever they want.
That surely means that men should be advising.
Yes, because they have no objections.
Exactly.
And here we have the presenter, deciding together with myself that the session is formally over.
For the viewers, we guess that yes, men should be judging women on hijab.
Yes.
First person. There you go.
Of course, my personal opinion is, why shouldn't men advise sisters? Why do we call them brothers if they don't advise sisters? And some of the sisters nowadays, they think if it comes from a sister, they think maybe it's hate or jealousy or something. But if it comes from a man, it's harder. It comes harder, and they will think. It becomes serious, and they will think about it. So my opinion is, why not? Of course, if the man takes care of his own hijab, then why not? Why shouldn't he advise?
There is one point that we need to add to what you mentioned, and that is recently on a Facebook chat between a brother and a sister, and the sister wasn't wearing a hijab, and the brother was somewhat advising her. And the post that he placed, which I saw, was that whomsoever does not wear hijab will indeed burn in the deepest pits of hell. And she, of course, was very upset and said, don't judge me, who are you to judge me, who are you to say such a thing? And this caused a backlash from the participants, or those who were in within the group or their friends. And so this area is of concern, but of course at the same time there is a dilemma as to if the brothers were to speak out and to present their opinion about hijab, how should they do it?
Do you not see the other side to it? Maybe that he's trying to bring out the good in you by being blunt. So what do you guys think about that? Clearly nothing. That means the guy's right. Sah? What do you think? We'll give the mic to you. Honestly, Chef, would you not agree that the guy is actually trying to see the good in his sisters? He's trying to help his sisters.
I mean, what I'd like to do is I'd like to hear from the brothers and sisters, then I'll give you my opinion. Otherwise, we'll come to the end of the particular session as far as that area is concerned. But before we continue, in order to stimulate the discussion even further, I'd like to add one point, and that is, when it comes to this whole notion of somebody advising the other about anything in life, why are they advising him in the first place? In other words, when they're coming to tell them about something, we have to understand the intentions behind a certain action. Are they advising them because they look down upon them, or they want the best for them? And one thing that we've got to remember is that one of the arguments that the sisters are presenting, and I don't know why I'm speaking on their behalf, but when it comes to this whole notion of whether the brothers should or should not interfere in the discussion surrounding hijab, is that they say they have no idea and it's quite difficult. So they come from a negative perspective. The Quran, on the other hand, tells us that hijab is a beautiful act by which people seek the pleasure of Allah and attain His reward, and at the same time it's a source of honor and dignity for the female. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ أَدْنَى أَن يُعْرَفْنَا فَلَا يُؤْذَيْنَ. The philosophy of hijab is given in the Quran. Allah says, I have made hijab, as far as the physical Islamic dress code for females, obligatory so that they're recognized. Meaning that the female, when she adorns the Islamic code of dress, she is indeed an ambassador for the religion of Islam. And therefore, when she becomes an ambassador for the religion of Islam, and people can identify that she's a Muslim, if she is not representing the religion in the right manner, should the brothers say something about it? Because she is, in a way, at the forefront when it comes to people identifying who is a Muslim and who is not. And if today we have sisters not adorning the hijab in the correct way, or they claim to be, for instance, adherents to the religion of Islam and not wearing it at all, are the brothers in the position to come forward and say, you know what, you represent my faith and you represent my religion, and I, as a person who is a Muslim, would like to give you some words of advice? Should that be the case or not?
But just to add from a brother's perspective, when the girls, just to say that brothers don't know, don't know what hijab is. We both live in a society where Islam is not the main religion, and I think guys do feel, in a sense, what hijab is, through the beard they wear, through the social hijab when they interact at work. But I'll just get his hands up to add to this.
I just want to put a question open to the female side of the room.
I feel it's often the male hijab is underestimated. I think that the girls think that their hijab is a lot harder than the males. Do you agree or disagree?
Do I need to actually go to someone?
Yeah. I think often what happens is females are very concerned over their own hijab and feel that males don't go through their own either. But the fact is, a male has to go through a very different hijab. And really they can't be compared, but one seems to, it seems that females have more to say about their own than males do. I think it's a very difficult hijab to keep. Do you agree or disagree?
Do you agree or disagree?
Are the struggles of men around in the West not a very difficult challenge?
You're saying that you have a problem by looking at men, at women, and they are not wearing proper hijab or so on. I think we have here males that are not Muslims, and we are lowering our gaze too. So I don't think what is the
The fact is they're both difficult. So why is it that the attention is always on the female hijab?
Can one of the sisters tell me what kind of pressures and problems you are going through? Because I don't understand that. I just don't understand which problems and which pressure.
Neither do I, that's what.
To be honest, I really don't understand which problems. We moved here, we moved to this country because of the hijab. We couldn't wear our hijab properly in the country where we used to live. So those problems here are nothing in comparison to the other problems. So I just don't understand. Can someone tell me which problems and which pressures you are going through?
The wearing of the hijab is simply wearing the headscarf. The issues of makeup and the issue of colour of hijab, how attractive it is. You know, you go to Mecca now, you see all these mantuat. They're basically like dresses now of all the colours. In terms of the male hijab, there is a male hijab. It's not just concerned to the gaze, but more than looking in an Islamic way. And finally, I think it's the duty of the fathers is to highlight the honor to their daughter what wearing the hijab is and being the flag of Islam when they're young, and that then passes on to the husband when they get married. It's to highlight how important, looking after the females by protecting their hijab.
I think there's been a couple of very, very good points, and we'd like to see more sisters participating and expressing their viewpoint when it comes to this subject. One idea that was raised already is that the whole notion of hijab is not simply about the scarves that the sisters have to wear in order to cover their hair, but it is also about their appearance and the type of hijab that they present themselves with as far as the physical dress code is concerned. So the Islamic teachings tell us that the hijab should be loose, it should cover the woman's body entirely from top to toe except the face and the hands up till the wrist. The idea that exists is that it should not be tight, it should not be attractive. And all these features, are they adhered to? And if they're not adhered to, then could the brothers highlight this issue? And as the sister correctly mentioned, I think from what we're told, there seems to exist a number of difficulties for our sisters to somewhat adhere or conform with the community outside the mosques and outside their homes when it comes to abiding by these instructions or these particular commands within the Islamic Sharia.
Can I just ask a question to the sisters? Tell me if I'm right or wrong. You don't have to speak, just raise your hands. Is one of the reasons that everyone is quite shy to speak because they fear for their reputation? Raise your hand. So that's the assumption that I make, that everyone is scared about their reputation. Therefore, they don't want to get involved. Maybe they're attracting negative. There's a hand at the back.
What I wanted to say is there seems to be obsession on how the female hijab is. There is a problem in the female hijab, but why ignore other issues in the community, especially what guys get up to? There seems to be the highlight is that what the females wear, but maybe we should pay attention to other issues that are not really visible, like the hijab. Mut'a, dating, drugs, smoking. That's what I see is the problem.
So I think what the sister is saying is a reflection of the verse in the Holy Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. Oh, you who believe, why is it that you say things whilst at the same time not reflecting it in your actions? So in other words, one idea that has emerged now is that when it comes to advice and consultation and exhortation, the brothers also should look at their own conduct and at the same time examine the way they conduct themselves in society. So when it comes to this idea, there mustn't be any dichotomy or double standards between the brothers and the sisters as far as the ethical system and at the same time the social hijab is concerned.
Does that not go back to my point? What you've just said, does that not go back to my point? And that's what I'm saying, is why is the focus on the female hijab as opposed to the general actions that are reflected out of the other hijab, the social hijab? There's a reflection on female hijab, just as the guy speaking, is because we feel, I don't want to speak for the guys, but generally over time, especially nowadays with the advent of Facebook and social media, the quality of hijab is declining. And I don't know if you guys agree with it. When I say quality of the hijab, I mean again pink hijabs and makeup, all these sort of aspects that we are seeing, and it can only be showing a reaction to this. When we see our sisters coming out on the streets and wearing colorful hijab, wearing clothes that bring attraction to them, obviously we're going to feel this is not right, and we're going to speak out against it. Do you know what I mean? Should they then walk around in black? Not wear anything at all? Black. What I'm saying is at least they should cover their body shape.
Don't you find it very interesting that two brothers are having a very close discussion about hijab?
And then we're getting involved.
Yeah, and the sisters are just observing exactly what we're saying. Can they do that? And can they speak on your behalf?
There's two comments. We'll go here first, and we'll come to you. Get that? We're saying don't wear hijab that brings attraction to you.
Yeah, but what hijab shall we wear? Plain one?
We're not saying don't wear black
hijab going outside in a black hijab.
It should be simple.
What they say, we live in the West. Your attractions are the naked women.
Yeah.
Pink hijab was attractive.
We're not.
It's really about living in the West.
I'm not saying that it attracts you.
Alhamdulillah, it's good to see controversy and discussions taking place, inshallah, in a healthy microphone.
We'll come to you, Ahmed, in a bit. Just sister here first, then we'll come to you. We do want to get everyone involved, sorry.
Basically, I think one issue that we need to discuss is how hijab has evolved. That's an important issue right now. It's become sort of now, hijabis can actually look better than non-hijabis. It's the whole fashion, it's the whole makeup. So I know one girl who actually took off her hijab because she said, I couldn't compete with that, I couldn't compete with the whole fashionable hijab, and so she took off. And it might sound silly, but I think this modern hijab thing is also an issue. Sometimes it's sort of compromising on what is hijab. It's not bad to look good, it's not bad to look fashionable, but it's this whole compromise with hijab that's an important issue I think we need to sort of discuss maybe.
Isn't a guy without a top attraction as well?
Are men able to control their emotions more than women?
Sheikh, please make notes, we'll come back to you.
I think society also plays a big role in like, for example, if I work with abaya in a country, for example, Iran, that's like attraction to men over in that society. However, in here, it's more acceptable to not wear abaya, like something decent. I think it depends on societies more than the actual traditional hijab.
How do you adjust and you adjust to the modern Western society?
So you're saying all hijab today is fine?
To a limit, but what is the limit? Because it's evolved. We're not living in the 7th century, Prophet's times anymore, where everyone goes out in the streets with a black abaya. Our sisters want to, show a bit of, they want to dress up kind of thing. So what's the evolution of the hijab? So that's the limit. Where do we draw the line?
It's not a bad thing, the hijab is so we can integrate in society as well. It's not just sort of, we just come out in our bayat and sort of no one knows. It's to integrate society, we can work, and it can appeal to non-Muslims as well. And they see us dressed up, normal clothes, but wearing hijab as well. But again, it's just to what extent. I think, have we crossed the line? Have we compromised? That's the question.
Can you say what extent? People are saying to what extent, but can they give their opinions? We'll come to the Sheikh for their opinion, but what are your opinions? Surely you guys have minds as well. Sorry, I'll come to you now.
I was a little bit hesitant to get involved in this discussion because I've heard so much from brothers about this topic, but very little from sisters on what they actually think about this. And it's a bit of a complicated issue, and I don't think we've received real answers from scholars with respect to Adam and you, to what is the extent of the evolution of the hijab, because quite frankly it's not realistic to expect the sisters to go out all wearing black. It's just not really going to happen. I don't think I don't think it's indecent.
They can do it during Muharram though. So why can't they do it for the whole year?
Well, I don't think it's necessary, to be honest.
Why not?
There's nothing wrong with the black abaya.
There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying a choice. Hang on, you got me wrong. I'm not saying that it's something wrong, but I think to judge someone who's not wearing all black is also wrong. And I don't know what the limit is, because I think some people have taken the evolution of hijab a step too far, where it has become actually more of a kind of fashion statement. I do agree with some of the comments where we don't actually focus on the brothers as much. I think there's a lot of underlying issues that I see in the community with gambling, with promiscuous relationships, and for the same brothers to come out and go on about hijab, it's just ironic.
Personally, I think we all know that to what extent we can make the hijab less attractive. I mean, even sometimes with abaya, we can make it to look so attractive, but like even with like loose trousers or like a top, it's always like non-attractive. And also this lady next to me, she wants to know that if it's okay to wear like a long tops with trousers.
Talking about hijab today, but one issue is, I think Ali hinted in it, is that people talk about hijab, but often they forget their own hijab, and again, promiscuous relationships and all that stuff is affecting our community. But does that mean that we should not talk about hijab as well?
No, definitely not. But there should be a balance. There should be a balance between what issues concern the females, what issues concern the males, and just trying to balance it out in a way.
Okay.
And because we're in the West, I feel like this doesn't have to be emphasized upon. There's more issues that we need to worry about. The fact that we have something around our heads seems to be covered up in a way. But that's not justifying how bad some hijabis are. But in a way, it shouldn't be the main issue we have in our community.
Do you know, I'll come to you, Ali. I'll make a comment now, but do you not think that it is a main issue because the reputation of a sister is far more valuable than that of a brother? If a sister does something wrong, then obviously it's going to have greater ramifications of it, and her reputation is much more, sacred than that of a brother. Is it more traditional though? Yeah. Is it? Why is it more traditional?
Why is it more important for the girl than the guy?
Well, speaking for someone who has a sister, if my sister did something out of place or inappropriate, then I know that my community is going to judge her. So you're saying that's culture?
No, there is an illness in the community.
Now in Islam, men and women have different things, different parts, different rules, men and women. You can't compare them to each other. In Islam, it is like that in Islam. A woman is different than a man.
Yeah, so
it's not something traditional or cultural.
So a woman is...
But why reputation? Why is that?
Because what I find, if brothers can support me and get involved with this, is that sisters really often complain that, our reputation is very bad. If we do something, we can't go out late at night, we get judged very easily. But what I'm trying to say is, of course, it's wrong to judge, but if a woman does something wrong or goes out late at night, she's going to get judged because she's more valuable.
Why are we judging in the first place?
Why are we judging in the first place?
Why can't we have a great education?
Is it not natural for humans to judge? Is it not natural for humans to judge?
No, that's okay.
Yes, you can.
We are here discussing that the guys are going to judge women and their reputation. At the end of the day, when we are dead, and we are going to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are going to see what we've done. It's not going to say, oh, your reputation or so. It's going to see what then you have done. So that then you as a guy done, or a woman is going to be judged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we actually have to educate ourselves to go out of this judgmental society and understand each other. When we're going to judge every person, it's judging every person just how they look like, we are not going to change the society. We are not going to bring the message of Islam forward. If we're going to start by judging someone and putting kind of a wall between us, then we are going to not move forward. And it's a kind of, I do understand we have that in our culture, that when a woman goes out late at night, there is something and so on. But we shouldn't put that forward in a way that kind of that's Islam, or that's we can't change it. So that's our society, we can't change it, you will be judged.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, women are different. Okay, like physically they're different, emotionally they're different, and this is one of the signs of Allah. So it's something very positive. However, spiritually, as in the fact that both are human beings, they're the same in the eyes of Allah, and it says they're equal. If a woman does something bad, it's not worse than if a man does something bad. You know, so how many communities do we know that treat men and women equally when it comes to marriage, for example? If a young man in this society wants to do mut'a, it's acceptable. If a sister wants to do mut'a to protect her religion, don't even think about it. You know, because you bring shame to the family, you bring shame to the community. This is disgusting. And the fact is, if you want to judge by Allah's laws, not your own. Because your laws and your or my opinion has no value in reality. If you want to judge by Allah. Allah says, to the man is what he earns, to the woman is what she earns. Everyone is equal in the eyes of God.
Just before we go to Hijab, so what arose from there is how can we change the thought process in society? Keep that for now, we'll come back to you.
Just regarding hijab, I think it's sad that if some sisters wear it because they're thinking about reputation, because at the end of the day, we've got to look at the essence of hijab and Islam. It's not about reputation, it's about what you feel in your heart and why you're doing it. For example, my sister, I know she understands the concepts behind hijab, and that's why she does it. She doesn't go out because she thinks someone's going to judge me. She goes out because she thinks that Allah will not be happy with her if she dresses in a certain way, and that's what we need to be promoting. I'm sorry to say, in some lectures that I've come to in Muharram, there's been some lectures where I think some of the lectures are extremely patronizing towards the sisters, and I just see myself cringing in the lecture because it becomes a whole lecture from a man talking to the sisters, completely ignoring all the brothers, and we're kind of making hijab a negative issue where it's just frustrating for a lot of people, including the brothers, because we've made it really negative. And I think we need to make it a bit more positive and congratulate the sisters for wearing hijab, because it's not easy in this country, and it's something that we don't understand because we've never done it.
I think it's easy.
You think it's easy?
I think it's
you know what, I used to think that until I spoke to some people and they said, you know what, we get discriminated more than you think. It's easier for us.
It's easy though, just
it's not. We're trying to get jobs.
Put a scarf on.
Well, look, honestly, you're not really in a position to say that because you're not even a sister. So
okay guys, we'll do some Twitter updates, should we go to the Sheikh? Twitter updates, maybe we can just comment on these Twitter updates. Confused Hijabi says, has hijab become a fashion statement? So if everyone hasn't become fashion, I think we established that it may have become a fashion statement. I mean, we've seen on, actually I won't comment on that. But yeah, I mean, you've brought the argument of, can I even comment, I'm not a sister, but surely I have an opinion to comment.
I think too many of the brothers, they take a bullying stance towards this, not understanding at all, talking down upon. And you know, even me saying this, I know some brothers will come to me later and be like, oh, you were sucking up to the sisters. And it's like, you can't win in this debate. You're either on one side or you're sucking up.
I agree with that.
So, you know, it'll be seen as me trying to get marriage points or something.
That's true, by the way. It's a very true comment. We'll come to the Sheikh for his closing comments on this.
I think this subject requires a lot more discussion, and it's refreshing to see brothers and sisters engaging in this dialogue. The number of points that have been raised, I would like to summarize and quickly give my own opinion as well, or rather what some of our scholars have mentioned. The first thing that we have to recognize is that, brothers and sisters, we live in a society whereby we're encouraged to look at ourselves and our souls only. In other words, there's an individualistic tendency towards the attitudes out there. For instance, what is other people's concern is not yours. So last week or 2 weeks ago in Nottingham, you may have heard about the incident that happened to a girl, a lady who went into a bus, and she mounted onto a bus, but she didn't have enough money. And so she needed a 50 pence coin to continue the journey. The bus driver would not allow her to continue. She begged the people who were sitting early hours of the morning in Nottingham city centre, and none of them did anything. They all looked towards the side. She was forced to come down from the bus, and eventually she was raped. And of course, what this displayed was the lack of attention and focus upon caring for the others. The Quran comes forward emphatically in chapter 9, verse 71. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says, Al-mu'mineen wal-mu'minat ba'dhuhum awliya'u ba'dh ya'muruna bil-ma'ruf wa yanhawna 'anil munkar. There is no dispute or argument about it, that the believers, as far as males and females are concerned, enjoy a certain level of authority over each other. Both of them, the brothers over the sisters and the sisters over the brothers. In which way? To enjoin the good and forbid the evil. So, in summary, when it comes to this idea, nobody should say that the brothers are not in a position, the first level, to advise or to say something about hijab. They are in the position, but likewise the sisters are also in the position to also exhort the brothers when it comes to certain behavior and certain attitudes at the same time. Yet if we go further in detail when it comes to this area, as has been mentioned, what we need to do is look at the right way, the attitude in which we approach this. It should not be judgmental. The intention should be clear. We have been discussing earlier on, some of the sisters mentioned, that this whole notion that if you wear the abba in the Islamic Republic in Iran, or if you wear here a long mantu, whatever, that's still attractive. The scholars tell us that the whole point of hijab is your intention. Do you wear it so that others look at you, or you're wearing it because it is your dress code, provided it fulfills the right criteria? So it is not about what the outlook will be, it's about your intention, and Allah knows your intention. So if you're out there wearing a certain type of dress code as far as the hijab is concerned, and that is perceived to be attractive. Now the problem is, if the notion that's presented that the abba is also attractive, that leaves nothing for hijab, does it? Everything is also attractive. But the idea is why you wear it and in which shape you wear it. That's number one. Number two, the question was raised about the limit when it comes to hijab evolving with time. Everything evolves. No hijab today, as far as a community, a tribe, country, is deemed to be the perfect Islamic hijab. When it comes to hijab, there are a number of criteria that have to be fulfilled. Iraqi hijab, Iranian hijab, Khoja hijab, Pakistani hijab, Afghani hijab, it doesn't matter which country or where you come from. Provided it fulfills these important requirements, then it constitutes as the Islamic dress code. Therefore, when it comes to this whole notion of evolving with the times, there is no problem if the hijab evolves, provided it's still within the boundaries of the definition of hijab, which we mentioned earlier, which were that the hijab must be loose, it covers the body of the female from top to bottom, and it doesn't show the curves or the shape of the body, and at the same time it's not intended to be attractive, and it's not tight. If these conditions are met, then let the hijab evolve, no problem. Let it be the 21st century hijab. But today what we have done is we've introduced our own versions of hijab in the 21st century. And we have somewhat made it like a way in which we can model it, different techniques. So we have the yo-yo hijab, the one that comes off and on in certain communities, whereby they put it on and then all of a sudden it comes down. We have the convertible hijab. It only comes on when you see someone of importance, like a scholar, or when the Quran is being recited in certain communities. These definitions, they say, well, it's more applicable to the 21st century. These are rejected because simply they do not confine with the Islamic definition of what hijab essentially is. The other point that was mentioned is regarding the whole idea of the brothers, and when it comes to their conduct, and should this subject be discussed and should others not be. Of course, nobody is suggesting that when it comes to hijab and matters relating to hijab, we should ignore the other problems or the social issues that you and I are facing. But without a doubt, today there is an integral and at the same time an effort being placed in the Western world to attack the whole concept of hijab. Hijab is under scrutiny. people started or began to debate about the legitimacy of the females wearing the niqab. And I've always mentioned this, and other respected scholars and speakers mentioned this several years ago. It was the niqab yesterday, today it will be the hijab. So the notion is, some people came out and said what? I saw a sister one day after a lecture about hijab, she came to me and said, why do you not speak against niqab in your lectures? Say it's wrong, don't wear the niqab in the West. The problem is, we'll fall into their traps. And we'll fall into this whole idea. True, niqab today is discouraged by some of the scholars, especially in the West, because it's considered as libas al-shuhra, meaning that it draws attention because you're wearing it. However, at the same time, we mustn't fall into the trap of thinking that this is all for the betterment of society. This is all in order to take us into a position where the Muslims find themselves in France. And therefore we have to stay strong and adhere to the principles of hijab, whether brothers and sisters. But finally, I'd like to mention one point, and that is, when it comes to the whole subject of hijab, the brothers have an equal responsibility as the sisters. They can be supportive, they can stand together, they can defend the concept, and they can also not be judgmental and appreciate that sometimes it is difficult, but at the same time it's a form of responsibility, honor and dignity from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala.
Thank you very much for that summary of the topic. I'll just read out a few more tweets and we'll move on to our next topic. Hopefully it can be as equally engaging as this one. We've got a tweet from Majid Djokovic. I think it says, I think how difficult hijab depends on where you live. In Brent, for instance, it's much more easy to wear abaya than it is in central London. Another tweet from Marwa 313. It says, anything too much is too bad. And we've got another tweet from, I will mention that. Hijab itself has not become a fashion statement and never will. However, some hijabis have turned it into one. And another one was saying, should have this been broadcast live?
Can I just mention one final point about this whole notion of reputation and caring about what others think about ourselves? Of course, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has emphasized in the Holy Quran and through the prophetic teachings the notion of the believer presenting themselves in the best possible way. Inna Allah jamilun yuhibbul jamal. And that's why we constantly emphasize the whole idea about personal hygiene as far as believers are concerned. And nadafatu min al-iman. There is one thing, presenting ourselves in the best way, and there is another, compromising our beliefs to seek the pleasure of other human beings. Because Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala on the Day of Judgment would leave us at the disposal of other human beings who will be helpless on that day where nothing matters except seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore the idea that exists in minds of some of our sisters, and that is finding or somewhat being accepted or seeking recognition from others, from what I've been told. This is the reason why some of our sisters, unfortunately, who, by the way, we should not judge, nor should we in any way look down upon those who have decided to take off the hijab, but at the same time incorporate them as much as possible, discuss with them, try to establish what the cause is, and deal with the issues slowly. Those sisters, some of them say the reason is because they feel when they're out with their friends or when they're out and about, they don't feel a sense of belonging, and therefore they wanted this recognition and somewhat have found freedom to express themselves without the hijab. Of course, we believe they're mistaken, because hijab actually liberates the female and gives her dignity and her position in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But at the same time, one needs to understand that this form of recognition comes from Allah, and that is what matters at the end of the day, whether Allah is pleased with us or not, and what not, whether others are in the position to tap us in the back and say, well done, you look nice today, or you don't.